Thank you all for your districts and schools being members of our organization. Without having our sponsored districts and schools, obviously we would not be able to put on programs like this. So thank you very much. We have a few people we're going to introduce, but I would say to you, if you've looked at the listing of events that have taken place here today, I don't know if there's any tie-in between the administrators and board members coming tonight to the earlier meeting that was in here, which was the Funeral Directors Preferred Traveler Club. I would say for those of you who are in administrative positions, it's not a bad connection to have. Let me introduce our three OC's district superintendents. We've changed our bylaws to make sure that each of our district superintendents is now on our board of directors. We think that's going to be a real plus for our organization. I'll save Lynn for just a second, but if I could ask David O'Rourke to stand up from Erie 2, and Clark Gotcha from Orleans Niagara. Again, are really a big part of our success. We also have some board members here that I would introduce, and I apologize now if I missed somebody. Judy Katz is here, and Caven is here from Erie 1. And we have Linda Hoffman, who is here from Erie 2. She's also the NYS Area 1 Director, so we're really pleased to have those individuals with us today. I'd also like to mention our sponsors. We have 10 sponsors of our organization. Again, without their financial support, our programs would be severely limited. And if I could ask Bob Hartz and Mike Horning Jr. from PLS Third Learning, if they could wave, stand up. There you go. Among the many things that they have at PLS Third Learning, there are many. They have come up with a superintendent evaluation system that is exceptional. Excellent, excellent. So if there are superintendents and board members, please talk to Mike and Bob about that. And we have Andrew Friedman here from Hodgson Russ. Andrew is no stranger. Hodgson Russ has been with the organization for many, many years, and we appreciate his coming to our meeting. With that, I'm going to introduce the person who's going to introduce our guest speaker. And I would ask Lynn Fusco to come up here, Erie 1 District Superintendent.
Thank you, Bob. There are so many people of note here tonight that I just want to drop another name and see if you recognize it. Oopsie, there we go. The name is Chester Arthur. I see there's a lot of lights going on in people's eyes. I see you recognize that name, not. Chester Arthur, for those of you who may be Jeopardy mavens or former social studies teachers, was the 21st President of the United States. Okay, somebody, yeah, she knew that. Okay. Well, interesting. You probably don't remember Chester Arthur's name because not that he wasn't a leader in his own time, but Arthur possessed extraordinary qualities, but the time of his presidency was such that there was never an opportunity for him to really fully exercise the leadership qualities that he possessed. If you look at many famous leaders throughout history, they become famous because of the interaction between their leadership skills and the times in which they lead. Our guest tonight has not been as fortunate as Chester Arthur, who didn't really have a whole lot going on during his leadership years, as our guest has stepped up during one of the most contentious times in education in our nation, let alone our state. She knew it would be challenging, but she chose to lead anyway. She's led through listening, compassion, and with empathy. Each of the many miles that she's traveled crisscrossing this state, and I know for a fact that there are tons, thousands of miles, has led us closer to the light at the end of the tunnel. So it's with great admiration that I introduce to you tonight a great leader who is forging ahead in very, very tumultuous times. Our Commissioner of Education, MaryEllen Elia.
So as a social studies person, I didn't want to jump up, but I did know the name Chester Arthur. And then I thought, well, where is she going to go with Chester? So I'd like to, I really would like to make a few comments to you and then open it up for questions. But I don't want to do that if nobody has any questions. Anybody have questions that you would raise if we open it up? Yes? Okay, so we'll make it real short and sweet. We'll talk about some of the things that we've done, talk about some of the things that I think are really critically important for us to move forward on, and then I'll open it up to questions, and I know that there'll be a lot of hands. First of all, it's always a pleasure to come back to Buffalo. I will be here tomorrow, and this is an interesting factoid that I just realized myself. I was invited to be the speaker at the convocation at Damon College tomorrow, the beginning of this year. I actually went to the convocation at Damon College 50 years ago. And I don't know if they realized it or not, but it's kind of a nice segue in my conversation tomorrow with these students that are going to be sitting in front of me. But I think that the Buffalo area, I was born in Rochester and quickly moved here at age 4. I lived in Lewiston, Niagara Falls. I taught not far from here at Sweet Home. I have all of my graduate degrees are from Buffalo schools, and I think you all have a wonderful area of the state of New York to live in. So congratulations to you. I did the opposite of what most people do. I moved in my 30s to Florida, and I moved back in my 60s to New York. So I have a kind of a unique perspective on it all. I'd like to review, since some of you have been living it, every minute and point that we moved this past year. I would just like to review real quickly in case you forget. I keep telling myself this is going to be hard to forget some of the things and the challenges that we've had, but I do think that we have moved off of the real, the maelstrom, if you will, of problems that we face. We still have issues, we still have problems, but at least we've got people moving in the right direction. So let me take them in the normal way that I present this, and many of you in this room I know well, and you've been in other presentations, but not at the end. You were there as we were moving. So what we did on standards, you will see within the next 2 weeks the initial review come out online for a standards review across the state. I've asked and will send information to every teacher, every principal, every administrator, every superintendent, every school board member, and all the parents that I'm connected to through the PTA to go on and give us feedback on the standards. You all need to do that. Our DSs are going to be having meetings in their own areas, and I hope you participate in them. This needs to be something where at the end of this, if someone looks at you and says, I had no opportunity to sign in on these standards. I don't like them. I want you to be able to say, just as I will, let me give you the list of the times that you had the opportunity to give input. Because when you have that to say, it generally makes people step back and say, you know, she just gave me a list of 20 opportunities that I could have given input on standards. And that's where we all need to be in education in this state. So that the message about standards doesn't get waylaid by people who have been part of the process, by the way, but who might believe that it's easier to say that I couldn't do anything and I don't like them because we are moving forward in New York. I think there's just some people that have a preponderance of arguments to say we don't want to go forward. I don't know why they would want that, because where we have been has not been the best place to be. So I hope that you'll all take advantage of that and share that with everyone you know. Parents across the board need to see that the standards are a reflection of the work that was done this summer by over 120 teachers, parents, education specialists from multiple areas, university professors, as well as business people. I mean, we had a huge committee, and people worked on that committee and took it very seriously, so I think they deserve for us to do that. All of the standards will go out. There'll be one review first. They'll come back. There'll be modifications made by the committee. Then they'll go out again. The regents will have an opportunity to see them in between. And then they will come back to the regents, we hope in December, but maybe January, and they'll be adopted by the regents. And at that time, then we need to take on those shifts and changes that are necessary in the curriculum and the work that's being done in classrooms every day, as well as in the assessments that need to match the standards and the work that's been done in the teachers, by the teachers in the state. So the standards committee, if anyone asks, is online. All the information about the standards committee, as will the work that they've completed in the next 2 weeks. Relative to curriculum, one of the things I heard a lot about was I was told I had to do the curriculum that was online in Engage New York, the modules, and I didn't get preparation. I really felt like it took away my creativity. I mean, teachers across the board told me that. I think it would have taken away anybody's creativity if they were told that, and I think there were places where they were told that, and I certainly don't agree with that being the case, and I believe that local control should be put clearly in the middle of making decisions about the curriculum. The regents will adopt standards. You as educators will take those standards and find the materials and have your teachers develop materials and work with those standards so that they can be delivered in the classroom in the most creative and learning, student-centered way. And you'll have your own way of doing that. I will tell you that as a superintendent in a very large district, I never had anybody come in and be a consultant to do training of my teachers. I had my own teachers do training of my own teachers. And I also told them, you're the ones that are going to design the curriculum, and we gave them opportunities to do that. So as you're looking, as leaders in education, as you're looking at how to make sure you've got the right materials in front of every teacher, get your teachers involved in making sure that's the case. I'm sure you're doing that. The next kind of big piece was the assessments. Now, you have heard multiple times that we still had 20% opt-outs. We did. Some of your school districts may have been high opt-outs. I have been very kind of open in my commitment that we need to have great assessments that match the standards, and we have to have New York State teachers involved in that. And so we had a number of teachers, 22 teachers reviewed every question on the 3-8 assessments, and they made changes when they said it didn't match the standard that it was supposed to match. We pulled it out. However, we are going to continue forward, and even though I believe a lot of the feedback that I got was that these assessments were much better, 75% of the questions were released online. Any of you, any of the people that don't like assessments, any of the teachers in any classroom could look at the assessments, 75% of them, of those questions are online. So, we're going to continue to move forward. We're going to continue to align the questions on the assessment to the standards that are adopted. So, if teachers and anyone say, I didn't like any of the questions on the test, or I don't think the tests are valid, please ask them to go on and look at the questions, because most times people don't do that, but they are critical of them. And I always ask, tell me what part of the questions, which section of questions, which grade level that you really disagreed with. And if that's the case, everybody has a right to their opinion about things, but let's look at exactly what it is that they're saying and see what we can do to improve it. It's very often much easier to say you don't like something than to take the time to really know why you don't like it or you do like it. And so I hope that people are looking at those assessments and seeing that, in fact, we've done a lot of work to improve them, and that was done by teachers in New York State. The other things that happen with the assessments, many of you are aware of. I know you are, but let me just kind of tell you. So we took the timing off. There's not a lot of research that says that it makes a huge difference. So I don't really think that it made a huge difference, but there were differences in our assessment scores. As you well know, across the state, many districts went, students in pretty much the grades across the state went up. Especially, they went up in ELA, let me clarify that, and in some places in mathematics, but not everywhere. So we didn't have the kind of growth in mathematics that we would like, but we certainly did in ELA. I have a degree in reading, and I will tell you that I always found that it was very difficult for children who were stressed to concentrate, and I always thought it was very difficult for kids who aren't the best readers to read fast, and watching the clock makes people nervous and makes them try to read fast. And the questions that you have after those passages require some thought. And so the scores went up. I can't say that it was or was not because of that. And I don't think that's a fair way to look at the assessments, but something caused those scores to go up. I like to think it was a combination of things. I think it probably was. Combination of taking the time off. We increased the closeness, we believe, of the questions to the standards. So we improved the assessments. And the fact that the timing let people not focus on being a speed reader, but being a great with comprehension, I think that was probably a bonus for us. So that we felt was a really important thing. And as we move forward, one of the other things that are going out, if they haven't already in your districts, going out to parents is a new parent report. Much more friendly. I don't know how many the times the DS has looked at that and gave us feedback on it, so we could really revise that the parent report card. Parents can't look at a report card that they can never understand and only see big blocks of numbers. Okay? It just doesn't make sense. We need to have parents be our partners, so we changed that. And I think the shortening of each of the grade levels, we shortened each of the tests in grades 3 through 8, English, language arts, and mathematics, by taking out portions of the test. So the changes in the assessments, there were some I think we can attribute some of the growth to those things, but not all of the growth. I feel like part of it was our teachers were less stressed this year, and they were more able to concentrate on the work that they have to do in a classroom every day with kids. So we will really never know if someone wants to be so specific to say, well, how did it happen? Was it because of the timing? Was it because it was a shortened test? I don't know. I'm certainly saying those things could influence it. But let me say this to you. 900,000 students across the state of New York took these same assessments in grades 3 through 8. When that was over, we had a substantive change in our English language arts scores. If for no other reason, you know that in my own district, I can say certain places did really well, certain schools, certain teachers, certain grade levels, and that gives you an idea of some of the things that you need to concentrate on, or places that you need to go, where you know you have a very strong team because they just did great. So I think there's many ways to use the assessments. We need to have those assessments be available earlier. We had them earlier, about 4 to 6 weeks earlier this year. We're really pushing hard to get information back to teachers and to you so you can use it to make really strong decisions. So the last thing is the teacher evaluation. I had the honor in my career before I came to New York to develop a teacher evaluation in conjunction with my teachers union. We didn't always agree on everything, but we worked through things, and I always said, if we find that there's something that isn't working, we need to be able to change it. So in my tenure, I will tell you, I would say that same thing as we move to develop a new evaluation system. You know that you can't keep doing things if you know that they aren't getting the results that you want. You have to be able to step back, and you have to say that there have to be changes. Unfortunately, people in New York with the regions feel like that when they say something and they make a determination and they put in a regulation, the perception is that it's going to stay forever. I don't really think that that's the approach that we want to take as we're developing something, right? Not like anybody's got an evaluation that everyone is jumping for joy about and wants to institute in New York. However, we have two factors that are going to be part of this. Number one, we're going to do this with our teachers. And number two, we have to move some things that are currently in law to a different place. So there are some challenges ahead of us, but what we were able to do was to decouple the evaluations from the 3-8 assessments growth scores. So that is in place to give us time to institute the new standards, work on the new assessments, have all of you working in your districts on the curriculum that best matches that with your teachers, and develop with the teachers that evaluation that ultimately can be an evaluation to help people get better. And I will tell you very honestly, we did, in my work with evaluation, we did a lot of training of those people across the board that go in and give feedback to teachers. Master teachers were part of that whole design. Our administrators were part of it. We made sure that there was inter-rater reliability. So we did all of those things, but ultimately, doing great work. There's not a whole lot of people out there that are not going to do okay on an evaluation. The purpose of the evaluation is not to fire people, and it shouldn't be. The purpose should be giving teachers feedback on what they could do better. And I think that's the real focus that we've got to put on this development of an evaluation. So those are the 4 big areas. That's the work that we did, and that's kind of the work that we have going forward. We also changed and instituted a number of things that would give us different pathways to graduation. We have more that will be added on, and so we have assessments from external entities that can be considered a Regents-like test, so that a student in a CTE program can get a certification, and they can use that towards their graduation. We are committed to moving forward on expanding CTE. It certainly won't take away from the great programs that are offered in our BOCES, but also it'll put programs in places where we haven't been able to do that before. The PTEC program nationally has been really well received. There's a number of states that are duplicating that. We have seen some excellent results with our first cohorts. And so the concept of expanding PTEC, getting the funding from the legislature to do that is pretty critical. And I think it's very important for us to look at the issues related to having students have access to quality pre-K programming. We don't have enough of our state, even though we as a state have put in substantial funding, we don't have enough of our state making the programs available. I don't believe in grants for that. I don't think that who the grant writer is in a district should determine whether a district gets those funds. And I'm working very closely for the legislation that will take that away and even us out so that we can move forward on quality pre-K for all kids. We have a lot of work to do in each of these areas. You think about the standards and getting that through. You think about what will we do with the assessments as we move forward. And then we also, the concept of computer-based assessment is coming. We had some very good work done last year when we piloted it, and there are some districts and schools that want to do it full force. So we're going to put that on the page and allow that to occur, and ultimately move us forward so that we can all be on the page to do a teacher evaluation, and hopefully get legislation that will allow educators to determine what has to happen. And I'm on screen here, so I'm not sure I should say this, but not the politicians. I would say we don't often get where we need to be when people who don't understand schools and children are in charge of the rules. So let's open it up now. Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership, Commissioner. My question is...
Can you introduce yourself to me?
Jeff Hicks, Clarence School District.
Okay, great.
Will the standards have another name, and will they include the name Common Core, and was the Common Core used as the basis for the development of these new standards?
So I'm not the Regents. I don't have a vote. I would suggest to you, though, that no one likes the term Common Core. Do you? No.
I'm okay with it, to tell you the truth, but I'm probably in the minority.
Most people don't. You know, most people think, first of all, they don't know what it is. And then, when they really get down to it, they think it's, you know, some political agenda, which it was. So, that doesn't mean it was bad. It just means that that's where a lot of the funding came from. So, so in my opinion of what will occur, which is, that's all it is, I think that probably the Regents will take advantage of the power that they have. As they adopt new standards for New York, they have the opportunity to do that. And I think they probably will take advantage of that. And the other part of your question, we took the standards that, and remember we had a survey that was done statewide. We had thousands of people respond, about between 12 and 15,000. And in that response, they said they wanted high standards. When we did the review of standards, we took the standards that were in place currently and said to these teams that worked by grade level and subject area, but then by band of grades. Tell us what you think should be changed, which ones should be taken out, which ones you think are not clear, and should they be moved to another place in the pattern of 3A. So from the point that you made, was that the basis? Our standards that were in place in New York, which of course were part of Common Core, those standards were the ones that our team of people from across the state reacted to. So there are, I understand, I have not seen the standards yet. The modifications that were made, I understand when I went to talk to them, were substantive, but substantive in my mind could be different than what those people thought when they were working on the standards.
Just a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
The best part of the Common Core standards were the mathematical practice standards and the anchor standards for ELA. Will something along those lines continue to exist in this new set of standards that gets promulgated?
I would agree that those are the best part of the standards, and I would agree that in fact we have to make sure that there is some core part of what our teachers said was really a powerful shift. I would suggest to you that if you can flash back, and most of you are old enough to do that, flash back to before and then to after, and even to this past year, think about how, as you pointed out, mathematics was taught in classrooms, and in a classroom that really adopted the standards and the shift in those, and the pedagogy associated with those standards, how different those classrooms looked. And I think that's what we have to make sure we have core in our standards. Because I had teachers say, make sure that these things don't change much. Now, I didn't control this team of people, and they were selected from across the state. And probably some of you gave the names, but we had union staff give the names, we had all different groups give names. So you have a cross-section of people who looked at them, but I believe that we have, moving forward with my conversations with those teams, I think we have some really good work done.
Thank you.
Welcome. Anybody else? Yes.
Our teachers and our administrators.
Can you introduce yourself for us?
I'm sorry, I'm Murray Purdy from Lancaster.
Okay.
And our teachers and administrators took on the computer-based testing last year as part of the field testing. However, there's a bit of reticence with them taking on computer-based testing with the real tests. Do you have any comments on that?
No, I do think that's a local decision, though. I think that if there is, if you have teachers and/or administrators who don't feel comfortable, don't tell them don't jump in the pond yet. Okay? They don't want to get wet at all. I would say to you, we're going to have to move there. But how people feel about that is going to be, it will be translated by others. And you certainly don't want kids to feel that this is a problem for them. And you don't want parents to feel that you put them in a situation that's a problem for their kids. So if they're not really serious about wanting to move forward, I would say hold out for a little bit. And you can do it. You can do it in different ways. It doesn't have to be, whole hog in it. So maybe be selective in what you want. There are ways that you can do it, and there are some people that might jump at this, and that's their type. So let them jump. Just give them the support they need to make sure it works.
Karen Cuddy Miller. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, Karen Cuddy Miller, Grand Island Central School District.
Say.
I wanted to tangent off of that question. The computer-based testing, as I understand, New York State Education Department wants us to be committed to computer-based testing by 2020. So during the next 3 years, districts have that option. We can jump in whole hog, we can step into the water, or we can wait and see if something changes. But from some of the initial research I've seen, There is a discrepancy in the achievement levels of students who have taken the paper and pencil test versus the computer-based testing. It seemingly makes sense for districts to explore the computer-based testing while we're in the transition years, and the discrepancy of achievement may not come back to haunt the teachers. However, that doesn't necessarily address the question of publication to the public. So if we were to make a commitment to computer-based testing, and our achievement levels are discrepant, we don't know whether or not it's about accessing the curriculum simply because it's the technology or the actual curriculum achievement or the writing of the assessments. Is the state moving toward creating some kind of algorithm that balances out the achievement levels of the computer-based testing such that it's not a punitive measure against those students who take the paper-based testing?
So the research that I am familiar with, which I would agree, says that there is some differences, right? I'm not sure that that research is clear enough as to what those differences are. So you can't create an algorithm if you're not sure what you're creating. And so that is probably not going to be on our page to do. However, you know, at some point, I think we all have to understand, at some point, we have to jump into this water. Now, 2020, 2021, right? When is it going to be? But we've got to move that direction. And in some ways, New York is extremely fortunate because of the SMART bond, which has funded and or will fund the ability for districts to have a consistent level of technology. Now, I know I've talked to districts that say it doesn't do enough, okay? It doesn't do enough. Some of those decisions are pretty critical for you to be making and using resources on. But we all know we are on now another reiteration of the smartphone, the Apple smartphone, right? Which I can't figure out why they aren't putting that headset port in, but they're not. The reality is that we've got to move this way. And there are some states that have jumped in and had lots of problems. I don't think that's the way to go. I think that you have to assess, but no, we've got to get there. So it's important for you to assess your own situation and the confidence that you feel and the way that you feel like you can move this forward, and maybe you can do it in grade levels, or maybe you can choose other ways to do it, but moving it forward is going to be important, and there's not enough research on why that might be different that you really can say it's different. So that's kind of where we are.
Thank you.
Yes.
I understand the SMART bond is going to be helping our schools and our school districts, Linda Hoffman, Erie 2, Cheektowaga, Cattaraugus, Boces,
Right.
and Area 1, NYS Rep. So this is my favorite thing about technology. I love technology. I live 30 miles from here. I do not have broadband at my house. So when we're talking about bringing these children into, especially in primary grades, into technology, and their parents don't have the ability to use technology at home with them, what can we do to pressure the state to move faster on their plans to bring technology to the entire state?
I think your point is well taken. I've already shared that because the reality is we do have, and not just in this area of the state, we do have in the southern tier, in the northern areas, we have some districts that really have that difficulty. And I think people don't often connect that. And so it is a really important conversation for you to have with the legislature. So coming from you, just understand, like I'm across the street. They have to some extent listen to my voice, but they can also turn it off. But with all of you, there are 750 some districts in this state. There's New York City. There's all of these very, very loud, potentially loud voices. You have all your legislators. You can share the importance of that. So it doesn't in any way diminish what we've done getting the smart bond from them, but it helps them to see this in the bigger picture of a community and what community and access at home does when you're trying to make sure that it's available. We've done some unbelievably creative things in the southern tier in our library system, because in the libraries, that's really the only place that many families have access. And so we, gerrymandered, I don't even know how to say how the things that they've done, but I know that they're doing that because they want to make sure in our libraries in that area they can provide access. But it's not the same, and it should be done across the state.
Thank you.
Yes, we had a question back there, and I'm so sorry I didn't. Where do you?
My question. Tim Maines from Jamestown.
I know.
We are a follow-up on the testing piece. So you're saying that it's going to be more flexible than it was because we had been told initially that you couldn't just do a single grade in a single school. You have to do the whole school.
So we've been talking about it. I think you may have, I think we're going to try to make sure that you can have some options. I can't guarantee it, and I know that initial language that went out was pretty, all in. Not district-wide, school-wide.
Right.
Right. But I had a conversation after that with some of the staff talking about the fact that you may have your older students ready earlier than you do your third grade, fourth graders. And so can we give that option? We've got to work through that with the testing company, because remember, if we're going online, they're the ones that have to run that for us. And we also have to not have paper for you. So it's how we can organize it so that we know who's going to do online, who's going to do paper, and make sure that you all have access. So we're working on that expansion, and I would say probably in the next 2 weeks to a month, we'll have more information.
I think if you're able to do that,
That would be helpful.
I think you'll have more people who are willing to take that tiptoe into
Okay.
a real situation that counts. I also think
Dave, make sure you put on the list of the DSP.
Got it. I also think, and I applaud you for both how quickly you got scores out to folks, and people were able to look real fast at how individual kids did in their district on certain items. If you could also continue to accelerate the release of the items, I applaud you for the number of items that have been released, and those also became available to us sooner than they had in the past.
Well, they actually were out, I think we had them out before January 15th. It was before teachers left. They had access to those items.
Before June.
June. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Still
soon
wasn't
enough.
soon enough in terms of helping people to really be able to roll up their sleeves and dive in.
Okay.
I continue personally to believe that those items are the greatest resource in helping both parents, teachers, and kids all understand what the standards are about, because I think the tests are very accurately mapped to what we're trying to teach. So I think that's really the secret for us in helping people to more deeply understand what the standards are about by looking at the items themselves. And so I just continue to encourage you to find ways to get those out as quickly as they possibly can.
Okay, that's good feedback. I think this is fascinating. People always said, well, it's so terrible you don't have the test released, and you must release those items. New York State, with 75% this year, had the highest release rate of the nation. So people believe that these tests are just dropped out online. That is not happening anywhere else for any standardized test being given at the state level. So the good thing is we got 75%. All right. Now you're pointing out we should try to get it earlier, and we'll do that. But the other thing I think that's a good talking point is to say, well, whatever percentage they get out, they're really pushing to make sure they can get more. But remember, they already are the one that puts out the most of anybody in the country.
One of the things that had been done several years ago, when there were many fewer items released, and so maybe they had the time to do this, but they really annotated
I know.
the pieces that came
Yeah.
with it. So they really.
No, that is, I have seen those annotations. If I was a teacher, I would have loved every bit of that.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to figure out how we can get some teams of teachers that can do it, probably through the DSs and through the SEDNet and that whole group, SCDN, is that it, Dave? SCDN, because the annotation will help all teachers. I really believe that. We just don't have the staff at State Ed to do it. We just don't have it. So we're going to have to tap in, and what we might do is ask for some teachers that maybe you as a district, some of you as districts could do some of the annotations, get together with your local districts and help us, and then share those, and we'll put them online.
I think if there was a model in standards or rubric for doing that.
It was great.
People could absolutely.
It was great. I think that would help teachers to really see how they connect it to the standard. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Kimberly Moritz. I'm the superintendent in Springville. Welcome to Western New York. I'm
Back to Western New York.
Back to
Back
Western
to
New York.
Western.
So I've been debating which question to ask you. I'm going to try to sneak in two.
Oh, wow.
When we talk about computer-based assessments at the state level, I believe we're still just talking about replacement on the computer, right? We're not talking about adaptive testing or anything like that yet.
No, so that is a great question, because I'm a person that would love to get to computer-based testing right away, because then you can do adaptive testing and you take away the issues that you have with your students with disabilities, right? Adaptive testing in the computer will allow the students, after they answer a certain number of questions, to automatically be put at their level of proficiency. So there will be enough questions asked of them so we can make sure that we keep within the requirements of ESSA and test our students, but it won't be a whole test. And so adaptive testing is a very, very powerful tool, and it only can be there if we can do computer-based assessment across the state. So we've got to get there first. It is on the page to do it, and it would be helpful sooner than later.
I think it will be much more powerful than what we're planning to do with computer-based assessments right now. And I'm worried that our communities will think that replacing the paper state assessments with a computer-based assessment is what we're really talking about when we talk about the power of that technology, and it's just not. I'm hopeful that we'll see more of a move to computer-based diagnostic instruction and adaptive testing, and certainly we'll be looking for opportunities to help work on that.
But we can't do it until we get everybody there. So
because of this technology being available.
Yeah.
I almost wonder, though, the move to the computer-based assessment that's just a replacement for the paper pencil test, if that's counterproductive to where we really want to go.
Well, it isn't counterproductive because you can't automatically go into all of those more sophisticated designs with the assessments if you don't have people who are on technology to some extent. And so it's just not possible to go that way. Now, other states will get to adaptive much quicker than us because they've already gone the other route, and they can now be in a position to redesign their tests, which is what you want. The backside of that is you go to computer-based assessment, and halfway through it, you get a black screen.
Yeah.
It is a kiss of death. The assessment is worthless. And you put all your teachers, all of your people through all this, and my goodness, you have to just say, come on. Or worse yet, you just say, oh no, we're going to use those scores, which is what some other states have done. So we want to get there, and I understand, but it has to be done in an appropriate way.
I think that's
Second
a
question, yeah.
I'm really excited to hear what you said about UPK because we've been talking about that at our tables for a long time. Do you think that could be a reality? That we'll be having UPK for all kids that's funded the same without different grant funding streams?
Well, I'm sure all of you are going to work on the governor. from our perspective, from my staff that works on Universal Pre-K, all of us have said it multiple years. We are working on agencies in the state to also say it. And I am with legislators, and I had a conversation this morning in East Ramapo with a legislator who was there and said, we have kids who are as third graders in a program, and in fourth grade, they go through a lottery and they don't get a program. So how does this make sense? It doesn't, right? We put third graders in when we should have concentrated on four-year-olds. We put 3-year-olds in when we should have concentrated on 4-year-olds and done it consistently for all 4-year-olds before we went to 3s. Okay, so, and we have no power in that. So you, as a voice, you've got to say that to your legislators and to the people who, one thing I think that's very powerful is get a legislator into your pre-K programs. Have them see the power of that program and what it does. And then if you can take some children, because you've had the grants long enough, take some children from 1st and 2nd grade and talk to them about how powerful that has been for them. That's how you're going to get this moved. But my voice will be there. I testified on last October, and it was a substantial point that I made, and I kept pushing it. So I think I'm getting the poke over here. So it was really pleasant and great to see you, and I hope you have a great dinner. I haven't seen my brother in 4 months, and he said to me, he called me and said, you live in New York now. You're not even in Florida, and I don't see you. So we're meeting for dinner tonight. So.
First of all, Commissioner, thank you for your challenges to us as advocates for education in our own regions and with our legislators. I think you've given us some good work to really engage in. And I know you're amidst a group of leaders and governance team members who are really just utterly impressed with your pragmatism and your drive forward and your responsiveness to the field. So thank you very much for being here.